The teacher of adult learners has a different job from one who teaches children. If you're teaching adult students, it's important to understand and practice the 5 principles championed by Malcolm Knowles, a pioneer in the study of adult learning. He observed that learners learn best when they understand why something is important to know or do. They have the freedom to learn in their own way. Learning is experimental. The time is right for them to learn, and the process is positive and encouraging. As an instructor, you should have a basic understanding of how adults learn. Adult learners bring experiences and self-awareness to learning that younger learners do not. To understand adult learning, you should understand learning domains, learning styles, and how and why adults learn. Most adult students are in your classroom because they want to be. But the principle is not about why your students are in your classroom, but about why each thing that you teach them is an important part of the learning. For example, imagine you're teaching a group of adults how to cook perfectly fluffy rice. It would be important for students to understand why each step of the rice-making process is important. In this course, we will cover the 3 general learning adult styles, also known as the VARK model. VARK stands for visual, auditory, and kinesthetic. Most people use all 3 styles when they're learning, but one style almost always is more prominent. The big question is, how do you, as the teacher, know which student has which learning style to enhance skills and perceptions to audience needs? At the end of this course, there's a knowledge check to test your understanding. This course should take you approximately 15 minutes to complete. Educators have determined that most adults learn best by experiencing a blend of activities that promote the 3 learning domains: cognitive, affective, and behavioral. Cognitive refers to knowledge. Affective refers to attitudes and beliefs. And behavioral refers to practical application. Here's a few examples of activities in each of the 3 domains. Cognitive consists of lectures, brainstormings, and discussions. Affective includes value classification exercises, normal group process, and consensus-seeking activities. And behavioral incorporates activities such as role plays, simulations, and teachbacks. Why is it important to touch on the 3 learning domains here? Well, it's quite simple, really. It's the means by which new information is transferred from the short-term memory of our adult learner to their long-term memory. In other words, it's all about making new knowledge stick. Check out this video about the statistics regarding adult learning and retention. Now that we understand the domains and examples of each, let's move to adult learning styles. Learning is a complicated concept, as everyone is unique in their own way and learns in their own way as well. That said, it's still very much possible to classify a learning style into one of 3 categories. Perhaps you fall into one of the following: visual learner, auditory learner, or kinesthetic learner. commonly referred to as the VARK style. Let's take a moment to really understand the VARK adult learning style. Visual learners rely on pictures. They love graphs, diagrams, and illustrations. Show me is their motto. They often sit in front of the classroom to avoid visual obstruction and to watch you, the teacher. They want to know what the subject looks like. You can best communicate with them by providing handouts, writing on the whiteboard, and using phrases like, "Do you see how this works?" Auditory learners listen carefully to all sounds associated with the learning. Tell me is their motto. They will pay close attention to the sound of your voice and all of its subtle messages, and they will actively participate in discussions. You can best communicate with them by speaking clearly, asking questions, and using phrases like, "How does that sound to you?" Kinesthetic learners need to physically do something to understand it. Their motto is, "Let me do it." They trust their feelings and emotions about what they're learning and how you're teaching it. They want to actually touch what they're learning. They are the ones who will get up and help you with role playing. You can best communicate with them by involving volunteers, allowing them to practice what they're learning, and using phrases like, "How did you feel about that?" Take a minute here to complete the VARK Learning Style questionnaire to determine what type of learner you are. Click the answer that most represents how you generally behave. Then add up how many A's, B's, and C's you've selected. If you selected mostly A's, you have a visual learning style. If you chose mostly B's, you have an auditory learning style. And if you chose mostly C's, you have a kinesthetic learning style. Some people find that their learning style may be a blend of 2 or 3 styles. When you have identified your learning styles, consider how this might help you to identify learning and development that best meets the needs of your learners. Let's take a trip down memory lane. Do you remember me saying at the beginning of this training to imagine you are teaching a group of adults how to cook perfectly fluffy rice? It's likely you do if you're an auditory learner. Well, imagine no more. Let's review the learning styles in real time.
Rice is such a staple ingredient, and yet so many people fear it. So many people say, I don't know how to make it, it gets too sticky, it gets burnt, how do you make the perfect rice? We're here to tell you. There's a few really simple tips and tricks to get that perfect, fluffy, great consistency. For long grain white rice, you want 1 cup of rice to 2 cups of water. For whatever type of rice you're making, you're going to follow a similar process. One tip to help you make the best rice ever is to rinse your rice before cooking it. Rinsing rice helps remove any extra starch. If you're short on time, you can skip this step, but it's a foolproof way to help you get really fluffy, beautiful rice. Some people rinse the rice until the water runs clear. A good method to go by is just rinsing it 3 times. First, I'm going to add the rice and the water and a pinch of salt, totally optional, but it'll give it some extra flavor, and bring it to a boil over high heat. Once the water begins to boil, give it a stir, put the lid on, and turn the heat down to simmer, which is the lowest heat there is. For long grain white rice, you want to cook it for 18 minutes on simmer, is to not remove the lid as you're cooking it. You're steaming the rice and you don't want to let the hot air escape. Just let it be, trust the timing, and it'll come out perfectly. Pro tip, once you remove the pot from the heat, let it steam for an additional 5 to 10 minutes with the lid on, and that's another way to ensure you get really fluffy, beautifully cooked rice. Again, if you're short on time, you can skip this step, but we're trying to get you the best rice possible. It's worth the extra 5 to 10 minutes to get really fluffy rice.
Now that we've had the opportunity to review the auditory learning experience, let's observe a kinesthetic student in action. Here, we have an instructor teaching her student how to cook perfectly fluffy rice. The student has an opportunity here to perform each step of the rice making process directly. And as we now know, adult learners statistically retain 10% of what they read or see, 20% of what they hear, but 80% of what they experience personally. Time for the knowledge check. In summary, understanding adult learning and how adults learn can give you valuable insight into how to plan and deliver training in a way that employs all three learning styles for greater knowledge retention.